Hey there, folks. It's your boy B3, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Today we are talking about more Weird DC. And today's Weird DC book is The Swamp Thing, Volume 1, Becoming. Because he becoming all the time. Sorry, that was a really stupid joke. For real, though, we're going to be reviewing this whole run of Swamp Thing, actually. So this is, in fact, the 2021 onward Swamp Thing run. There's currently 3 volumes, but I think that's all there is. I've read all 3, and I thought it wrapped up nicely and everything. It says continuing on when I looked it up, but I don't think it is. I think it's over. I think it just needs to be updated. But The Swamp Thing 2021 Volume 1 Becoming. Let me read you the back of the book. A new Swamp Thing is born. Levi Kamei has been chosen as the next Guardian of the Green. Unable to control his transformation into the monstrous Swamp Thing, Levi is thrust into the harsh, unforgiving mystery of grisly murders committed by a supernatural desert legend. Levi must revisit past events in his homeland of India and face the deadly reality of a ravenous new villain in order to comprehend what he truly and horrifyingly what he is becoming. A new era of global action and horror blossoms here, and Swamp Thing will be at the root of it. Written by Ram V, who worked on Catwoman, and illustrated by Mike Perkins, who's worked on Captain America. The Swamp Thing, Volume 1 Becoming, collects the Swamp Thing 1 through 4, and Future State Swamp Thing 1 through 2. I hadn't read the Swamp Thing, but I had read Future State Swamp Thing before this. Anyway, let's get into it. This was really cool because Swamp Thing books always have really interesting and unique paneling, and this one is no exception. The very first page is someone plucking up a little grub with all these very interesting panels around it, talking about the life cycle of maggots and how, at what point the maggots are at in their growth. You can tell how long a body's been dead, which is true. I'm actually a thanatologist who works with museums, and I used to be a mortician. I was a mortician for 5 years, and I can tell you that is one way to tell. But there's also normal decomp that can help you tell as well. But we get a lot of history about this desert that this murder took place in, and there's this pale man wandering it. He's like a local legend, this pale man. And he does exist, and I originally thought that he would be the new avatar of the Rot, Avatar of the Grey, but he is not. Speaking of like the Grey and stuff, I will, of course, be doing Rot World. I've read all the Swamp Thing volumes for that multiple times, and I'm about to finish The Animal Man, so we will be reviewing all of Rot World. Anyhow, I'm just going to call him Levi. I think his name is Levi. It looks like Levi, but I'm just going to call him Levi, because I'm pretty sure that's probably how it's pronounced. He has become the Swamp Thing, and this book is very interesting because it's not like an immediate transformation into the monstrous form. He's like becoming the Swamp Thing in a much slower way. Like he's going back and forth between human and Swamp Thing and can't help the transformation. Like he's turning into Swamp Thing at night and is human during the day, which is new and interesting for Swamp Thing because it's always been you turn into Swamp Thing and you stay that way forever. But he, once again, it's not his choice. He just kind of turns into Swamp Thing when the Green makes him, which is typically at night. It's very much like the original Hulk. It's very Joe Fixit or very Immortal Hulk, or even Werewolf by Night. I've been reading that. I need to review that. I've been reading the complete collections for it. Anyhow, he's coming to terms with it, and this whole run, it's very poetic in many ways, but in one way is just like the dialogue. You know those like narration boxes that used to be in a lot of older comics? they've kind of fallen out of favor nowadays and have been replaced with monologue boxes. This book has those, and it's kind of an old-fashioned thing, but it's a lot like poetry. It actually kind of reminds me a lot of Ta-Nehisi Coates', I'm butchering everybody's names, I'm sure, for this whole review. It reminds me a lot of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther run. I reviewed the first volume of it. I need to get to the rest of it. It's literally right next to me. I just need to do it. But right now we're focusing on Weird DC. It reminded me a lot of that run because it was very poetic in just the way it was written with these narration boxes and stuff. And even a lot of the dialogue boxes are really poetic. And there's this philosophy about ideas being alive, living things. And the Pale Man is like, I'm an idea, and you, Swamp Thing, you're an idea. And we're clashing ideas. And, ideas never really die, but they can change. They can be absorbed by other ideas, etc. And that theme runs throughout all 3 volumes. Really every issue of this Swamp Thing run. And I do want to say one thing about Levi being able to go back and forth between Human and Swamp Thing while I'm thinking about it. What a raw deal for Alec Holland. Like, you look back on it, and you're like, wait, the Green could have let Alan Holland be Human and Swamp Thing at the same time? They could have let him go back and forth? They just chose not to be dicks? Like, it's a weird implication, because when he was going back and forth in this volume, I was like, oh, that's because he's becoming Swamp Thing in a different way than Alec Holland did. And then, maybe in the next 2 volumes, he'll be permanent Swamp Thing, like that'll be his permanent body. Nope. For all 3 volumes, he can go back and forth. Which is like, hey, why didn't you let Alec do that? He hated being Swamp Thing. Hated it. And he probably would have embraced the role so much more if he could have done that. So why didn't they let him? They clearly have the power. It's just very funny to me. It's very funny. But I really like the colors of this. Lots of purples and pinks for a Swamp Thing book. Lots of reds. The greens, there's not really that much greens in the first part of this book. A lot of it takes places in, like, deserts, and there's just so much purple. There's a lot of purple. So much. And there is a part in this where he does go into the green and accidentally drags his friend down in there with him as well. And he meets Ivy and Poison Ivy, like different parts of Poison Ivy's psyche. One's kind of the more innocent Ivy, and then the other one's like the more violent Ivy. There's also a creature called the Woad-Woos, which I guess was supposed to be like the first Avatar. And he's like this giant kaiju-sized plant Bigfoot thing. And when you see him, he's in that classic Bigfoot pose, like looking over his shoulder with his arms swinging. You know what I mean. And you're supposed to see it and kind of be in awe of it, I feel like, because it's really magnificent art. The art throughout the whole book is pretty great. But you see it, and you can't help but laugh. You really can't. But he meets Alec Holland and the Ivies within the green and gets advice from them. And there's also Jason Woodrow, the Floronic Man. He is in there, kind of being a little creeper, being a little nasty, weird little man. But Swamp Thing, Levi, does eventually find his friend, and you got Amanda Waller and also corporations that want Swamp Thing's power. They always do, don't they? Everyone's always fucking with the Swamp Thing, but he is a force of nature. They can't take him. They just can't take him. And then we get to the future state Swamp Thing, where it's like this world where humans are almost extinct. And Swamp Thing, and it's really well done, he's made humans. Like, they're not humans, but they're plant people that he's made. Kind of like in his image and in the image of humanity. And I think this one is Alec Holland. It's weird. But he makes them and he uses them to search for humanity. Turns out he is the one that killed humanity and he regrets it. And he made these false plant humans to help him look for the regular humans. And Jason Woodrrow is, of course, there. I would say he's probably Swamp Thing's arch foe these days. It used to be Anton Arcane, but these days I really feel like it's maybe Jason Woodrrow. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But Swamp Thing, like, sacrifices all these children of his he made so that he can save humanity. It's kind of sad because they were basically a means to the end for him. And Jason Woodrrow's plan kind of works, but Swamp Thing sacrifices himself in a way to save humanity. I don't want to tell you exactly what happens, but it's good, especially for Future State. A lot of Future State stuff was like, what? What is this? It was kind of rushed garbage. But this Swamp Thing Future State thing, like this, even outside of the Future State event, this would have made a great Swamp Thing story. Really cool 2 issues. So that's it for Volume 1 of The Swamp Thing Becoming. Thank you all very much for your support. Sorry if it was a little rushed. I actually have to go. I haven't had a lot of time to record these, but I've really been wanting to. It's just been a very hectic time for me at work, and it's been insane. But that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I'll be seeing you all next time. Bye for now.